Hello. What's going on, guys? 360 Digital Closing Bell here. I am Michael Tanner, joined as always from an undisclosed location here in Denver, Colorado. It is a beautiful, well, actually, not really beautiful. It turned into a beautiful day, really rainy this morning here in Denver, Colorado. June 9th, 2020, a beautiful Tuesday, as always. I'm joined by the executive producer of the show, the purveyor of the show, and the director and publisher of the world's greatest website, oilandgas360.com, Stuart Turley. Stu, how you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
We've got so much flying around. I encourage you, if you're not subscribed to the 360 Digital Closing Bell, please do that right now. It's the best way to stay up to date on all of your energy, finance news, iTunes, Spotify, or Entercom's YouTube channel. You should also check out the 360 News Desk, where all of the articles and info that you are going to hear on this podcast will be available. You can check all that out on oilandgas360.com. I mean, diving into the digital ticker today, when we look at what happened overall in the markets, U.S. stocks sort of paired some gains that they had happened the past 4 or 5 days. NASDAQ briefly topped 10,000, led by Apple, who said they're actually going to bring home some manufacturing. So it was a good day for Apple. Briefly set all-time highs for NASDAQ, but settling just below that point throughout the day. SPY was 3207, about a 0.75% drop, about 25 points on the day. Like I mentioned, NASDAQ settling 99.53, so just below 10,000, about a 29-point gain on the day. Dow Jones 27,272. That's a 300-point drop, led by a really rough day for Boeing, down about 1.5% on the index. Crude oil having an okay day, doing about 1.5% up to 38.76. Though if you go actually look on the NewsDex chart, we have a really nice outline of what's going on with crude oil. So I encourage you to check that page out. It'll be in the show notes. Crude oil back end, though, 12-month strip for the back end of the curve, 40.44, so about only a 45-cent move. And if you've been following this with us over the months, you can really tell that front month contract has done very well, but the back end of the curve, specifically 21, and even if you look out 22 to 22, has not seen the gains, and prices have stayed relatively flat. So that's something very interesting to watch. That curve is really flattening up right now. So that's something we'll be watching moving forward. Natural gas had itself another rough day, down about 2 cents on the day, about 1.5% on the index. Down to $1.76, back end of the curve, 12-month strip for natural gas, $2.80, about basically flat on the day. So that's interesting. And 12-month strip on natural gas does basically the same. So that's very interesting that the outlooks for both crude oil and natural gas are sort of staying outlook, back into the curve, but we're seeing so much volatility in the front end of the curve. XOP, which is our E&P securities contract, 66.61, which is about a 7% drop on the day. So a rough day for energy equities, and we'll sort of dive into that on the biggest gainers and losers. But oilfield services does even worse, down 7.65% to 160.30. So really, yesterday we saw, yesterday and Friday we saw some historic increases. So it's only right we maybe saw a little bit of a pullback today. But when we look at our biggest gainers and losers, it's sort of funny if you've been following us, the biggest losers today were our biggest gainers on Friday and on Monday, coming in at 3 today. Whiting Petroleum, as we mentioned, they've been up huge the past 2 days, already filed bankruptcy. They're down 32% to $2.35. California Resources Corporation down 33% to $1.79. And our biggest loser on the day, down 66 percentage points, is Chesapeake Energy, 23.75. So, if you've been following us along, Chesapeake's up huge the past 2 days, hugely down today. So lots of volatility. On the upside, there was still some money to be made on the upside, let alone even though that index was down 7%. Prime Energy Resources Corporation, nice offshore oil and gas company, up 4% to $91. Haldor Energy Corp up $1, up to $1.21. It's about a 5.2% increase. American Resources Corporation up 6 percentage points to $1.25. Please, if you are not subscribed and have not looked into the Oil and Gas Conference by Entercom, I encourage you to do that right now at theoilandgasconference.com. It is the place to find all of your energy investor stuff. They're having the conference of the year is coming up August 17th through the 19th. It's going to be a digital / in-person conference. So if you want more information on that, like I said, please go to theoilandgasconference.com for all information and how to register. Stu, what's going on in the international news desk?
Boy, I'll tell you what, Michael, it is busy. Enverus had just put out a note just a
I saw
couple
that.
hours ago. Yeah, and ExxonMobil in the Guyana area is really going wild, but this Enverus story is just phenomenal. Also, in Q3 2020 Deepwater bidding round in this area for the super majors is going to be big to watch.
Well,
The
yeah, because
other,
that's about that's the only stuff that's making money right now. You want to talk about tier one acreage? It's those, and the super majors are the only people that have cash right now and access to capital to finance this.
you got that right, Michael. The other one is on the oil and gas news desk. The Saudi-Russia oil price war was a very big mistake. Qatar energy minister says, you gotta love it. Oops.
Yeah, hindsight being 2020, and I appreciate yeah, hindsight 2020. That just kills me right there. So lots of good stuff. Like I said, please check out the 360 News Desk. This is where all of these articles that we'll be mentioning, and something that came across the wire for me is as we mentioned yesterday, Chesapeake was one of our biggest gainers, happened to be our biggest losers today, but right during the show, actually, so I didn't quite see it come across the ticker. Chesapeake announced after the market closed during our closing bell show that they are considering and are probably going to be filing bankruptcy for within the week, and it could hand control over to lenders who have about $9 billion in debt right now. There's two of the biggest investors are Carl Icahn and O. Mason Hawkins. So they've consulted with a couple of banks. They're considering right now whether to skip interest payments, which are due on June 15th. The number I saw was big. And what was the number I saw? It was like 400 million in maturing loans that come June 15th. So they're considering not whether to skip interest payments, which would give them a 30-day grace period to sort of shore up and decide whether or not they either want to enter Chapter 11 or see if they can have, basically it's extra 30 days to come over here. So that'd be very interesting. And so then today, what happens? The stock absolutely tanks after hearing that news because, well, everyone thought oil prices being at $40 was going to save Chesapeake, and the answer is no, it's not. They were probably bankrupt before. They were going bankrupt before. They're going bankrupt after. And guess what happens? The stock exchange has to halt shares trading of Chesapeake amid reports of Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Both of these stories are on Oil and Gas News. This one's via The Street. They got halted 2 or 3 times. Their options were going crazy. It was a 40% pre-market move, which automatically triggers a halt if the first 15 minutes don't pan out. So it was very quick. I checked right before the market opened. I saw something on my news ticker that came across that mentioned this percentage. So I looked into it. Yeah, 15 minutes into the close, boom, all of a sudden Chesapeake had halted. It was unbelievable. I don't know what to say other than please don't invest in Chesapeake. I highly recommend against it. That's the type of volatility you're dealing with. You've got even Jim Cramer. There's this quote you can see in the article. I wish people understood that common stock is the lowest ranked when it comes to bankruptcy. Because yes, if you are buying Chesapeake thinking you're now all of a sudden going to own a couple wells in the redistribution, not going to happen. I mentioned the 2 guys that are going to get pretty much all of the money. Who was it? Carl Icahn and O. Mason Hawkins. Those 2 guys, yeah, they'll probably come out of this pretty well. But you, the individual retail trader with 25 shares of Chesapeake in your brokerage account, E-Trade probably not going to get much. So just probably take the loss, exit the portfolio right there. And that's it. So it's been a wild day and specifically a wild 3 days for the energy equities trading. And hopefully it's culminated and going forward tomorrow. Hopefully we can see some relaxation, but who knows? I mean, my heart rate's above 120 during the market all day. Like it just is staying at above.
Hey, Michael, you also hit it on the nose on the ConocoPhillips chairman story. I noticed that came through after you put it out. So ConocoPhillips.
Yeah, I did notice that. So there's another article you can check on Oil and Gas 360. It was just an interview that happened. That was actually by RHA's Market Kit and ConocoPhillips CEO Ryan Lance. And did he say anything terribly shocking? That no, he thinks low cost supply shale resource is going to still exist, and there's still shale will bounce back and eventually become cost effective. I don't think that's a huge shock to most people. I think there's a natural thinning that will happening, but eventually we're going to come to a price that is economical both for oil companies to produce and for people to buy it. It's the free market. It's just what happens. Adam Smith wrote about this in 1800, The Invisible Hand. So it's just nice when you see one of these big CEOs come out and really put a stamp on it, because especially if you have companies, in this times, CapEx is led by the super majors. And if they're not investing CapEx to continue to grow their oil and gas business, nobody is. So to see someone from the top level come out and say, hey, we have all these different businesses, upstream, downstream, refining, chemical business, but we are still committed to producing shale oil and think it will continue to come back. It's a great sign. And I think that's why this got picked up by a lot of people, because there's not much positive news coming out right now. I mean, we're hearing shares going crazy, but Chesapeake's going back. I mean, it's just crazy what we're hearing. So I think this was just sort of a positive story. And I think, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that positivity still reads, and we really like that. So I think that's everything for today, Stu. Are we missing anything?
No, we got lots of news. Go to our news desk.
Please go to the news desk. We will have that in the closing bell email here. So please check out the 360 News Desk. Also subscribe to the Energy 360 podcast by Intercom. That is the place for energy thought leadership, iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. But with that, we're going to go ahead and let you guys get back to work. Thank you for checking out the 360 digital closing bell here on this beautiful Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. We will see you guys tomorrow for the digital ticker.